All right, today we're jumping into Parkinson's disease. It's a condition that messes with the very core of how we move. We're going to break down what it is, what's happening inside the brain, and some of the incredibly clever ways medicine works to fix this unbalanced act. So let's get right into it. So think about it like this. Your brain has a conductor, right? Its job is to make sure all your movements are smooth and perfectly timed. But what happens when that conductor starts to stumble, when it loses the rhythm? That's really the heart of the matter when we talk about Parkinson's. Okay, so first things first, what is this disease really? Let's pull back the curtain on Parkinson's and look at what it actually looks like from the outside. At its core, Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative disorder. Now, the magic words here are loss of dopamine-producing neurons. Dopamine, you've probably heard of it. It's this super important chemical messenger in your brain. And when the specific cells that make it start to die off, our whole system for controlling movement just starts to fall apart. And this isn't some super rare thing, and affects about 1% of everybody over the age of 60. Now, 1% might not sound like a lot, but that adds up to millions and millions of people all over the world. It's a huge deal. So what does that loss of dopamine actually look like? Well, it usually shows up in 4 key ways. First, you've got the tremor, that classic shaking when someone's at rest. Then there's rigidity, a real stiffness in the arms and legs. Then there's this thing called bradykinesia, which is just a fancy word for slowness of movement. And finally, you have postural instability, which really just means your balance gets thrown off. But here's something that's absolutely crucial to get. Parkinson's is so much more than just a movement disorder. Its effects are spread all over the body. And sometimes, these non-motor symptoms show up way before any tremors do. We're talking about losing your sense of smell, serious sleep problems, major mood shifts like depression and anxiety, even things like constipation. All right, so we've seen the outside. Now let's peek under the hood and see what's really going on inside the brain that's causing all this. Now this is a wild fact. Get this. By the time someone actually starts noticing those tremors or that stiffness, a staggering 70 to 80% of those dopamine cells in their brain are already gone. The brain is amazing at compensating, but it can only hold out for so long. So the best way to picture what's happening is to think of a chemical seesaw in your brain. On one side, you've got dopamine. It's the calm friend saying, "Whoa, let's slow down." It's the brakes. On the other side, you have acetylcholine. And it's the hyper friend yelling, "Let's go!" It's the gas pedal. In a healthy brain, they're perfectly balanced. But in Parkinson's, the dopamine side plummets, and the seesaw just slams to the ground on the acetylcholine side. Way too much go, not nearly enough stop. So you're probably thinking, okay, I get it. The problem is low dopamine. So just give people more dopamine, right? Simple. Well, yeah, if only it were that easy. And that brings us to the big problem. The major hurdle in treating Parkinson's. And it's actually a defense system our own body built. So say hello to the brain's personal gatekeeper. It's called the blood-brain barrier. And you really can't overstate this. It is the toughest bouncer at the most exclusive club in the universe. Its one job is to protect the brain, and it is incredibly picky about what it lets in. And here's the kicker. Our bouncer? It takes one look at dopamine and says, nope, you're not on the list. You can't just swallow a dopamine pill or get an injection. It doesn't matter how much you have. It is not getting past that gate, period. Okay, so if you can't get through the front door, how in the world do you get this stuff where it needs to go? And this is where the science gets really cool. Researchers came up with this incredibly clever workaround. It's basically a Trojan horse strategy to trick that bouncer. It's a 2-part mission. Step 1 is the disguise. Instead of sending dopamine, you send its raw ingredient, a molecule called levodopa. The bouncer looks at it and says, okay, you look fine, come on in. But there's a problem. Your body tries to turn it into dopamine before it even reaches the brain. So that brings us to step 2, the bodyguard. You give a second drug, carbidopa. It walks alongside levodopa and stops the body from converting it too early. And here is the genius part. The bodyguard itself can't get past the bouncer. So levodopa gets escorted right to the brain's front door, goes inside alone, and then it turns into the dopamine you need. It's brilliant. And that combination, that disguise and bodyguard, levodopa and carbidopa, is still, to this day, the absolute gold standard, the most effective therapy we have for treating the motor symptoms of Parkinson's. It was a total game changer. But, and there's always a but in medicine, isn't there? As amazing as this treatment is, it's not a perfect fix forever, especially as the years go by. Things get more complicated, and that's why doctors need a whole toolbox of other options. See, as the disease keeps going, even more of those natural dopamine cells die off. The brain basically loses its ability to store and buffer the dopamine. So instead of a smooth, steady supply, patients get these wild swings, what doctors call on-off fluctuations. And this becomes this really tough tightrope to walk. When the medicine is working well, you're on. But sometimes it works too well, and that causes all these extra involuntary movements. But then, as the dose wears off, you're off, and you crash right back into those terrible Parkinson symptoms. It's a constant daily battle. So, to handle all this, doctors open up the full toolbox. They have different tools for different jobs. Some drugs just pretend to be dopamine. Others act like bodyguards for the dopamine that's already there, stopping it from getting broken down. And some even go back to that seesaw and push down on the other side to help rebalance things. It's all about finding just the right mix of tools for each person. Okay, so after all of that, the problem, the obstacles, the brilliant solutions, what's the big takeaway here? What's the one thing you really need to remember? And please, if you take away one thing, let it be this. Every single treatment we've talked about just manages the symptoms. They are not a cure. They are amazing, but they do nothing, absolutely nothing, to stop the brain cells from actually dying. The disease is still there, moving forward in the background. Which leaves us with the biggest question of all. We've gotten incredibly good at papering over the cracks, at treating the effects of the disease. But the real fight, the one that's still waiting to be won, is going after the cause. So, now that we can manage the symptoms so well, can science finally figure out how to stop the disease in its tracks? That's the challenge. Thanks for joining this explainer.